Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants. It's a pleasure for me to host this prestigious panel, which is designed as a panel discussion titled Eurasia Cooperation in Focus Amid Uncertainties. We have some questions regarding this panel, which has been distributed between the distinguished panelists, and I'm trying to go through these questions, and of course the panel is open to any discussion that esteemed panelists are going to present. For opening the discussion, I have some driving questions which I raise one by one. I think it's better that any panelist express their idea regarding these questions or any issues that they are going to raise in this panel. The first question is, what are the most pressing challenges to fostering effective cooperation across Eurasian nations, and how can they be mitigated? This is the first question. The second is, how do global uncertainties such as economic volatility or great power competition shape the prospects for Eurasian integration? The third question is, what role can initiatives like cross-border infrastructure projects play in enhancing economic and cultural ties in Eurasia? The fourth question is, what mechanisms can Eurasian nations develop to ensure that cooperative efforts promote equitable growth and regional stability? And of course, there are some other questions like, what is the role of Eurasia in the political literature of the third millennium? And the last question is, what are the priorities of influential countries in the region? So this is the framework of our panel. As I mentioned before, of course, our panelists are free to express their ideas. There are some other issues like the war in Ukraine, for example, which is very influential in the situation in the Eurasian region. The corridors plays a great role in our regions. The regional infrastructures like Shanghai Organization or BRICS or Eurasian Economic Union in the region. So if you allow me, I will start with the esteemed panelists. I have in my right and left 4 panelists. Of course, we are waiting for Mr. Yevseev from Russia. Up to now, he has not come here. We have Mr. Sergei, Melkonian, Research Fellow, the Applied Policy Research Institute from Armenia. Mr. Farid Shafiyev, Chairman, the Center for Analysis of International Relations from Azerbaijan. Mr. Mohamed Amersi, Chairman, Amersi Foundation from India, and my colleague, Mr. Ali Beman Eghbali Zarch, Director, the Eurasian Studies Unit, IPIS, the Islamic Republic of Iran. If you allow me, I will start from my right hand, Mr. Amersi. Please, floor is yours.
Yeah. England.
From?
It's from England.
From England.
The United Kingdom.
Okay.
No problems.
Because I had your name from India. Okay. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and to be part of this very distinguished panel. I had the privilege of being involved in building mobile businesses in Central Asia. So we helped with Kcell in Kazakhstan, Azercell in Azerbaijan. We helped with Megacom in Kyrgyzstan and also Geocell in Georgia, and Moldovcell in Moldova. So I travel quite a lot to this region. I think I would make 3 or 4 quick points here. I think that the Russian conflict with Ukraine has changed the landscape for Central Asia significantly. There was a time when Central Asia was looking to pivot between its historical relationships with Russia and then its outreach from the United States and from China, and it was stuck at a crossroads to see how and where it should align itself. I think the situation today is complicated because of what happened with Ukraine. I think it's complicated because of what happened with Georgia and Russia, and also between Armenia and Azerbaijan. This region is very, very rich, as you know, with natural resources. Kazakhstan has oil and gas, Azerbaijan oil and gas. Turkmenistan is one of the largest exporters of gas. The Caspian Sea is something that is very important. And for Iran, this region is very important because it borders 5 of the stans. It borders Azerbaijan and Armenia, it borders Tajikistan and Turkmenistan, and it borders Kazakhstan. So clearly, how this region plays out has a massive impact on Iran. And my final point is that I was recently in Baku, and to my surprise, there was a delegation from Israel there, and they were trying to persuade Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan to become part of the Abrahamic Accords, but not call it Abraham Accords, but to call it the Abrahamic Alliance. So I think we will see some movement in that direction as well, and the extent to which the stans can stay independent and chart their own independent geopolitical course, I think will be very important. But let me stop there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Amersi. Regarding our question, do you have any idea to express to your audience?
So I think it's very important that the stans decide that they have to unite under some umbrella, because if they speak with a united voice, they've got far more power and replicate the old Silk Road approach. Because if they only talk and act in their own self-interests, I think that they will become little pawns in a much bigger political big power play, which will slowly start to unfold.
Okay, thank you. So if you allow me, from my left hand, Mr. Shafiyev, if floor is yours.
First of all, thank you very much for invitation, and first time at this forum, and thanks organizers. We indeed having now more frequent encounters. Just 2 weeks ago, I had the honor to host a delegation from Iran, from IPIS in Baku. And let's go to the questions we have, and the general to the topic. Mr. Amersi already kind of put some strokes on its landscape picture. I think in terms of uncertainties, there are 3 important factors. First of all, if we'll start with the global uncertainty, we indeed in period of the reformulation of the global order, and the buzzword here is Trump administration, what Trump administration doing in terms of the tariffs, in terms of the Middle East, in terms of the Russian-Ukrainian war, and in terms of a transatlantic relationship. Even it is transatlantic, but I believe it will have impact on the whole the world, including on Eurasia. And when it comes to Eurasia, usually we're speaking about the area between Eastern Europe, between the Warsaw Bloc and Asian countries, traditional Asian countries. We usually mean former Soviet Union countries, stans, as you said. But here we have indeed big transformation. Now, more than 30 years, those countries, including mine, are independent. And the term post-Soviet, I don't think is applicable, because 30 years, that means we have completely new generation, young people, who were born in independent countries. We don't know what the Soviet means. Definitely Soviet legacy is there. And here we come, of course, that the impact of the Russian-Ukrainian war, I don't want to talk about that much because it has been said, but I think it is also very big impact, economic, social, migration, etc. But the third factor is the conflict in the Middle East. And this is much more complex picture. We have we had standoff in Syria, we had the Gaza problem, we have generally Israel-Palestine problem, we have also the issue of the nuclear negotiations between Iran and the United States. I think in that way or another, it has also impact on the Eurasia. And on the smaller scale in the South Caucasus, we are speaking about Armenian-Azerbaijan normalization process. I don't want to speak much because the Hikmet Hajiyev just spoke at the, in the main room. I think we are heading towards post-conflict, the post-conflict period. Yes, Azerbaijan has been under occupation, but I think there is the positive development. We finalized the text of peace agreement. We are working on delimitation, and there are some other issues in the pipeline. But that does not mean that all uncertainties, at smaller or global scale, they will still have the impact on the region. And let me finish my initial remarks that, because one of your questions was about the solutions. I think three important pillars of solution for the, do you hear me, yes?
Yeah. Yes.
First of all, it's the principle of international law, principle of territorial integrity. Azerbaijan advocated for this principle for 30 years. And finally, we're coming to common understanding how it's important in the South Caucasus, in Ukraine, in Middle East. The second is non-interference in domestic affairs. We all have our own foreign policy agenda. We have a lot of similarities. And by the way, speaking about similarities, I'm in Tehran and see so much similar in terms of culture and in terms of history between Azerbaijan and Iran. But of course, we have also some of our differences. And I think, the way forward is to cherish what we have in common, but respect what we have a bit different. And third is the transregional projects. Already you spoke about the corridors, about some energy, north-south, east-west, middle corridor. Probably in a later stage, I might elaborate a bit more on that. I will finish on that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shafiyev. So, from the Armenian viewpoint, Mr. Melkonian, how do you think about the general view of the region and the Eurasian region as a representative of Armenia? Please, floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, that is a pleasure to be here among these distinguished colleagues. Coming to your first question, to be honest, each of us may write a PhD thesis because it's a really big and complex questions. So I'll try to be very brief to have more time for a discussion. And we started from uncertainties. And the problem is, first, we cannot predict them. So it means that it's really complicated to try to calculate in a short-term, mid-term, and a long-term run which kind of uncertainty we may face. Second, we cannot nullify them at all, that uncertainties that exist now. It means that the only way how we may deal with them is to mitigate the existing uncertainties, what was not able to predict. And here maybe, so there's obviously a wide range of to-do list or recommendations, etc. I think there are many rules, and three of them I think are following. First, we should focus on neighborhood first policy. When we're talking about Eurasia, so that's a big puzzle, a lot of dividing lines, etc. But when we focus, zoom in from global level to regional level, that will be more relevant to solve many issues that exist now. And Armenia is following this in its foreign policy, this direction. So Armenia is trying to normalize relations both with Azerbaijan, with Turkey. Armenia is balancing between south, north, east, and west. And if we apply this approach to different regions of Eurasia, that might be very effective in terms of mitigating the negative consequences of existing uncertainties. So the second point is, I think, is important to focus on inclusive projects rather than exclusive. So, and this approach is relevant both on multilateral organizations. So from one hand, we have very exclusive, privileged G7 club. From other hand, we have, for example, BRICS. It's enlarging, so it's much more inclusive platform comparing with the exclusive G7. And zooming in again from global level to regional level, and you start talking about the communications. So in South Caucasus, we have different agendas on communications. The first one is the so-called Zangezur corridor. That is exclusive in nature, so it's not including all regional states, and it will undermine, obviously, regional security. And from this perspective, Armenia and Iran, we are on the same page. We see the Zangezur corridor project as a possible threat for the regional stability. And from another hand, we have, for example, proposed a project of Crossroads of Peace, which is inclusive in its nature. We may agree or disagree about the feasibility, etc., but still, the idea is to unblock all communications in the region, to bring to the South Caucasus both north and south, west and east, etc. And the third point is to build trust. So this might be the biggest challenge. We see that there were a lot of discussions on interconnectivity will bring peace. Let's focus, for example, on Russia and Ukraine case. Extremely interconnected in terms of economy, in terms of history, in terms of culture, etc. It's sometimes even extremely complicated to see where Russian zone is ending and Ukrainian starts. So they're extremely tied, even in terms of family relations, etc. So this is why interconnectivity is not working in general. So when we are coming to the rule security first, so we should take into account all interests of neighboring countries. And neighboring countries and the South Caucasus states, they should not determine their relations with its neighbors by relations with some foreign actors. We have two examples, good and bad. The good example is Iran. So Iran has good relations with Armenia. Iran has good relations with Azerbaijan. Recently, Armenia has conducted first in its history joint military drills. Iran was conducting joint military drills with Azerbaijan too. So Iran is conducting a balanced foreign policy in the region. On the other hand, we have Turkish approach. And Armenia is trying to normalize its relations with Turkey, but the main obstacle is the precondition. The Turkish precondition to normalize relations with Armenia is Armenia-Azerbaijan normalization. So it means that we should not determine our relations with our neighbors by relations with other states. And then we try to build trust on it.
The inclusive approach is also chosen by the Iranian side. So we are not going to exclude any actor, I mean the regional actors from the issues in the region. So if you allow me, I will turn to my colleague, Dr. Eghbali Zarch. And how do you think about the current situation in the region, especially in the South Caucasus, as our colleagues from Azerbaijan and Armenia expressed their ideas about the South Caucasus situation?
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here. Of course, before answering your question, I would like to refer some points regarding the importance of Eurasia region. As you know, till the end of 20th century, in political literature, very rare speaking regarding this Eurasia axis. of course, because at that time, and actually after the collapse of communism, there was some theory like who would like to have, let's say, decisive role in the world order should have influence in the Balkan. But in 21st century, there was some change in this theory, and it became not Balkan, and they are speaking regarding the Eurasia. Eurasia, of course, the definition of Eurasia is very, very large, and we had seen a variety of definition. Some people speaking from China to Europe, others speaking another regionalization, but what are accepted for many, let's say, politicians, it means Central Europe to CIS. And because of that, the Black Sea has become more and more influence and important in the international interaction, and actually in the relation between Russia and Euro-Atlantic axis. And if we would like to speak regarding the main, let's say, argue of Ukraine crisis, maybe this is the, let's say, fundamental argue for both sides, because for Euro-Atlantic axis, it was aiming to dominate all Black Sea, and after that are coming to Caspian Sea. But why Caspian Sea? Because between Black Sea and Caspian Sea, there are very important regions that include South Caucasus and Central Asia. And of course, traditionally, there are some countries in this region have had very close interaction in culture, in economy, political, security, and of course, many others. Countries like Iran, Russia, Turkey, and in a way, China. But in last time, from Europe and of course, Israel, that are trying to play very destructive role in this region, especially by its presence in Azerbaijan, in Georgia, and Turkmenistan, because in this region we have seen a very fundamental changes from geopolitics and security to geoeconomy and connectivity. And here, maybe I will refer to your question regarding what happened in South Caucasus, of course, and our friend made some, let's say, referring regarding the Zangezur, of course, we say Sionic connectivity, and of course, Iran and our foreign policy, of course, the first priority is enhancing bilateral and multilateral cooperation with all neighbors. And Iran has no any, let's say, obstacle or argue against any corridor, any connectivity in this region, because any kind of connectivity could help the development, the reconstruction, and of course the welfare of the people in this region. But it is very different between connectivity and some corridors, like without clear definition. As a corridor, many Iranian tracks are traveling Turkey, thousands years. But when you enter in Turkey, you are in the dominate of Turkish authority. we have the same facility for Turkish tea, for any others. Central Asia are coming in Iran, are going to Persian Gulf, go back, nothing obstacle in this region. What is in discussion or like some ambiguity in Sionic corridor is about who would like to monitor or to, let's say, to control this connectivity. I think this is a very important issue. Of course, there are different, let's say, approach, Russian, Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Armenia. But what is important, as we had seen from Iranian authorities in all rank, like supreme leader, Iran will oppose any geopolitical change in not only in the South Caucasus, in Central Asia, or any region neighboring Iranian country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Eghbali. Let us change our the format of discussion. Go through the factors and actors in the region. As you know, there are many factors which has their implication in the issues in the Eurasian region. And there are many actors, I mean regional and trans-regional actors. Just to categorize the situation, I want to say that there are three levels of factors and actors in the region. First is global factors and actors. For example, the Ukrainian crisis or the Ukrainian war is an issue raised by the rivalry between global actors, which is the United States, Europe, and in one side, and Russia in another side. In the regional category, we have some actors like Iran, like Turkey, like Russia, which is both global and regional actors. And just the countries which are located in the regions, for example, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia in the South Caucasus, and in Central Asia we have those five republics, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. My question to the esteemed panelists is that which level of actors or factors has more implications in the situation in Eurasia, or in other way, the issues in the Eurasian region is impacted by mostly by which one of these three levels? If you in general agree in those three levels, please let us start from our friends.
So let me start by talking about the Russia-Ukraine conflict. I think that the region, the Central Asian region, is waiting to see how this will unfold. If it was to unfold where Ukraine was to become independent, Ukraine was to advance its quest for membership of NATO or its membership of the European Union, I think that this would have a transformative effect on the whole region, because the confidence level of the other countries in the region would be to say, we also want to chart our own independent course, and maybe we should choose whether we want to form an alliance with China, an alliance with the United States, or more importantly, an alliance with the European Union. Sadly, the way the conflict is unfolding, it looks more and more like as if Russia will definitely be allowed to at least contain its investments in eastern Ukraine, southern Ukraine, and therefore, for the stance, if I was looking at this, I would say that the time is yet not ripe, given what has happened in Ukraine, for anyone to decide to become absolutely independent of Russian influence. So I think Russia will still play a very big part. I hear my colleague from Baku saying that these are all independent from the Soviet Union. That is absolutely true. But if you visit any of these stands, Russian language is still very, very important. The political leadership and the elite are still talking actively to Russia. Russia, when Kazakhstan had its issues 2 years ago, when Masimov tried to overthrow the system there and Tokayev came to power, the Russians overnight sent 25,000 soldiers and contained any aspects of any Western infiltration into Kazakhstan. So I think that Russia will become, is and will stay a very dominant influence in this area. Then you have
In any case, in Ukraine, and at the end of the Ukrainian war, you mean that in any case,
so if,
after the war in Ukraine, Russia will be dominating the...
if Ukraine had won completely and Russia was defeated in Ukraine, I think that would have been a very different ball game.
How much it is possible?
I think it's impossible. That's my perception. It's impossible because now that we have seen the Trump-Putin alliance, which is aligned far more to supporting the Russian position than it was under Biden, and so I can see that there will be some sort of ceasefire where sadly East and South Ukraine will stay in Russian hand. In the north, there will be a question mark whether Belarus will advance its interests and try and see if they can move into Kharkov in some way. And I can also see Poland and the EU in 5 or 10 years to say that we want to build a buffer between Russia and NATO or Western Europe. So the area of Western Ukraine, Lvov, is something where we would like to build an independent buffer. And I feel very sad for the Ukrainian people, but this war is not as much about Ukraine as it is about trying to see if there was a strategy to weaken Russia and to have Russia embroiled in this conflict so that Russia cannot fight the West in Afghanistan, Africa, and other theaters of influence. It was to keep Russia bogged down as much as possible. Russia has its relations with China, Russia has its relations with North Korea, and some say Iran also supported Russia by supplying drones and other ammunition. Whether it's true or not, I'm not in any position to pass judgment, but Russia will sadly be a player, and countries like Azerbaijan and to some degree Kazakhstan have learned how to navigate the superpower game where they can maintain their independence as long as they're not there to have to choose between East or West. Ukraine could have said, exactly the way Finland was, where we want to be independent. We are neither East nor West. Allow us to stay independent. Sadly, Zelensky decided to choose that he wanted to go on the side of the West, and this was unacceptable.
What about the regional factors?
So in the regional factor, one point that we have not talked about is the enormous influence now that the Gulf states are having in Central Asia.
You mean Persian Gulf?
Persian Gulf states, not Arabian Gulf. Persian Gulf, okay. So if you look at the GCC and you look at their sovereign wealth funds, look at Mubadala, for example, it is a big investor today in Kazakhstan. It is an investor in Uzbekistan. So the power game of exporting extra money and trying to control these states is very much at play. Sadly for me, countries that are rich like Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, should be creating their own independent sovereign wealth funds and investing in the rest of the region to at least have a chance to dominate the poor countries like Kyrgyzstan or Tajikistan or to some degree Uzbekistan, which has a lot of people, but its economy is mainly focused on cotton and does not have the hydrocarbon resources that the other stans have.
Thank you very much. So let's turn to hear from Azerbaijan. What do you think about those 3 levels that I raised in the...
Let's, for me, to make it a bit different, start with the small level, from smaller to global. So let's start with the, let's say, from the South Caucasus or from Central Asia. From the South Caucasus, we have three countries, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia. And again, not to repeat what have been told before, let's say if we manage to, at some point, to put differences aside, I think the platform of three countries, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, the first meeting happened already in Tbilisi at the level of the deputy minister, is already a good sign that this platform might be a nucleus of regional cooperation. Of course, we should be realistic. The scars of war or wars or the scars of history won't go quickly, but at least we can do something at a certain point in the history. And here I would like also to react to some of the previous comments about regional cooperation, interconnectivity. You know, the regional connectivity is not panacea, is not answer to all problematic issues. But let me just give example, practical example, how Azerbaijan and Georgia promoted energy and connectivity projects. It brings now money, Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan, Baku-Tbilisi-Kars railway. Potentially, when we're speaking about oil and gas pipeline, they could cross Armenia too at certain point in 90s when we discussed how to resolve the conflict, but they have not. And now we're discussing Zangezur corridor. Again, it's up to the countries to decide whether it's good for them or not. Again, I would like to refer what we have with Georgia. It brings money. The same, we believe, can be applicable to Zangezur corridor. If not, and Iran, I just heard that is opposing it, but Iran at the meantime is welcoming that Azerbaijan will build this corridor through Iranian territory. So it's the question to countries, to audience, to experts, how far they see these connectivity projects. And one point, of course, the connectivity itself cannot be, there was a point which my colleague from Armenia did, that to prevent the conflicts. There was some international theory that the economic interdependence can prevent conflicts, Ukrainian-Russian interdependence economic, or Chinese-American economic interdependence. Because it couldn't, because they had fundamental differences. In case of Russian-Ukrainian, it was the territorial integrity issue. In terms of the American and Chinese interest, it's the rivalry. So if there is no political will, if there is no respect, which I said in my first remarks, the territorial integrity, respect of sovereignty is the basis on which you build economic cooperation. European Union didn't, they agreed on some political platform and build the economic foundation on that political platform, on political understanding after the Second World War. And after these three countries, of course, Russia, Iran, and Turkey. It's historically they've been here, and fully agree that Russia is not going to disappear. Though I believe that Russia, indeed, its adventure in Ukraine diminished Russian abilities. We'll see how it will end. But yeah, I think all these three countries, we fully realize in that way or in our way have historical interest. So that's why the platform 3+3 was promoted by Azerbaijan too. Now it has some problems. Georgia is not taking part in that, but which is understandable. But anyway, I think at a certain point this is also relevant. And we're speaking about some other platforms, ECHO, Sika in the previous panel was speaking. It's not mean that one platform should replace the other. I think it's the multi-layered foundation. But one thing I would like to finish about the global powers now, you started with global, I started from the bottom. They also are not going to disappear. They will try to influence. And here we comes that Azerbaijan was always in favor that the external powers will not creating dividing lines. And this is important, that the regional countries also won't be trying to push one country or another, but respect that we have the stake in this region, and we should work together towards some common goals. Thank you.
Thank you. As I understood, you mean that if in the region, for example, in the South Caucasus, if those three states, the Republic of Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia, if they leave their differences and get the final accord for each other, for example, without any conflict, this is enough for the peace and stability in the region?
It's good foundation. It's not enough, but it's good foundation. Enough. It's not enough because I said also regional powers should stop competing and trying to interfere in the internal affairs of each other. For example, here was a comment about some countries, their presence in Azerbaijan, for example, Israel or whatever. I think Azerbaijan built a balanced foreign policy based on its our national interests. We have not also interfered in the foreign policy agenda of our neighbors. When our territory was under occupation, some countries had connection with country A or country B. We didn't like it, but we have not objected because we understand this is the sovereign countries. So I think first, three countries coming to the common understanding, and countries around Turkey, Iran, and Russia also comes to certain modus operandi in the region.
Okay, thank you. Let us hear the idea of our friend from Armenia. What do you think about what is your response to my question? And if you have any comment on our friend from Azerbaijan, please.
Definitely. One colleague was talking, he was trying to zoom in. Mr. Shafiyev was doing zoom out. I will jump in. We should talk about the responsible leadership. Because when the status quo in a different region changed, non-regional actors that try to fill this way, as it was, for example, after 2020 war in Artsakh. So we see how increased Russia's presence in the region. We see how increased Turkish military presence in the region, and Iran was out of the region. Now, the status quo was changed in 2023. And as we see, it's my personal opinion, Iran has an advantage. Because Iran is the only neighboring country that has diplomatic relations with all South Caucasian states. And having the platform 3+3, it's complicated because of its de facto 3+2. So we are not discussing some tangible stuff in terms of unblocking communications, etc. But as Iran has balanced relations with all countries, and Iran is ready to take this responsibility, so Iran may propose the 3+1 agenda in terms of unblocking communications. Coming to Russia's role, you know, Russia's position obviously declined since 2022. So Russia lost part of its presence in the South Caucasus. So we don't have Russian peacekeepers in Nagorno-Karabakh. Russian presence in Syria extremely reduced since the end of last year. But it doesn't mean that if the conflict in Ukraine is frozen or stopped, it means that Russia will definitely pivot to Asia. Because it doesn't matter if there is a crack in transatlantic community. We say that Europe is trying to focus to create its own security architecture. And from Russia's perspective, the threat number one will still come from the European side, not from Asia, not from the global south, etc.
European, you mean the Western?
Yes.
And the United States?
No, not United States. I'm talking about the different approaches. For example, Weimar Triangle, like Germany, France, Poland. Yeah. So there are different forms of cooperation in Europe that from Russia's perspective will be aimed against Russia. So Russia's main threat will come from the West. And obviously Russia will keep many resources, military, diplomatic, economy, etc. They will be still oriented to mitigate any threats. As Armenia is trying to do. And when we again talk about so-called Zangezur corridor, Armenia's answer is clear, no. So why we should continue to discuss why it's relevant or it's not relevant to another side? If it's exclusive and not inclusive, so that's not interesting for us. If you are ready to discuss some inclusive platforms that engage all regional countries, that has a balance of interest, you're always welcome.
This is my question, just to you yourself, the situation between Russia and Armenia recently has raised many questions and ambiguity. What is going on, the relation between Moscow and Yerevan? Is it still a friendly or partnership between Armenia and Russia, or Armenia is going to, for example, include Western countries just like Russia that we had before? Is there any changes in Russian-Armenian relations?
Obviously.
What do you think?
I think if you ask this question, representative from many countries, did your relations with Russia change since 2022? The answer will be definitely yes.
No.
Increasing trade turnover, security, etc. Still, number one, Armenia is still Russia's ally. We are still a member of CSTO legally. De facto, we do not participate in this multilateral security platform. Armenia is one of the most active members of Eurasian Economic Union, and Armenia is the only Eurasian Economic Union member bordering with Iran. So, and even from Russia's perspective, Armenia is a window to Iran, to Persian Gulf, and then to the global south. Number three, in terms of security and military technical cooperation, definitely our relations has changed. And number one military technical partner for Armenia is India. So it's not France, it's not the United States, first is India. Because it was complicated to find any military munition during the global confrontation in Ukraine. So, and we tried to find any solution after the 2022 large-scale aggression. So, because we didn't have enough defense capabilities to deter. And in terms of political orientation, as you see, we follow the security agreements with Russia legally, while within economic cooperation, and we have almost the same level of political dialogue, and we're trying to restore it, and Russia is trying to do so. But it doesn't mean that our relations with Russia should be conditioned by our relations with the West, or by our relations with Iran. So that was a nonsense. Armenia did not conduct large-scale military drills since 2020. And we did it for the first time, and we did it with Iran, not with Russia, not unilaterally. So, and we try to not put all eggs in one basket. So we try to build our relations first with the global south, with the West, and obviously we continue to be in Russia-led platforms, as it's coming also from our interest.
If you were Mr. Putin,
please don't do it.
No, if are you worried about the direction that Armenia is going on in the foreign policy?
You know, since 2022, there are many people that try to understand what's going on in Putin's head, and I'm not from this part. And I don't think that Russia is extremely concerned about what Armenia is doing, because there is a level of dependence in terms of economy, in terms of security, in terms of connectivity. So it means that there is a leverage that Russia may use to balance the situation in the region. And it's complicated to pivot, so we are living in the region and we do not ignore the geography. So we cannot pivot to the west when we border with Iran, when we border with Turkey, and when we do not have direct connection with the West. But should we develop our relations with the West to have technologies, etc., to continue our economic development? Obviously, the answer is yes.
Of course, we are very happy regarding the peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Do you think we will face any peace agreement or rapprochement between Armenia and Turkey in the near future?
You know, maybe the biggest part of Armenia's diplomatic efforts, they were focused on Turkey. Armenia did all necessary steps to normalize relations with Turkey. Armenia is trying to do everything to change the modality of closed border. Turkey closed border with Armenia in 1993. Now Armenia is trying to work to open it somehow. But answer from our Turkish counterparts is, first you should normalize relations with Baku. So this is my point, that if you want to have a secure region, relations with your neighbor should not be conditioned by your relations with some other countries. But yes, obviously this is one of priorities on Armenia's foreign policy today. As in terms of regionalization process, definitely we should try to open borders with all our neighbors.
Thank you very much. Mr. Eghbali, how do you think about those three levels that I mentioned regarding the actors in the region, regional states and global states?
Of course, regarding the global, let's say, development, I would like to mention the lecture or the experience of Ukraine war. I think this is very important for the South Caucasus countries and actually Central Asia. If you, as a small country, try to be as a balancer with big power, surely you will be the main loser. Maybe you remember in April or in June 2022, when we discussed here regarding the Ukraine war, it was very clear. No side have possibility to have a final word in the battle. And actually, no, after 3 years and some months of war, the situation is the same. Of course, Russia has some progress, but with many, let's say, military costs, human losing, and of course, at the other side, Ukrainian side, they have very difficult now situation, and in this case, for Trump administration, it was very difficult to reach on some solution, because Trump promised to put end the war in 24 hours, in 1 week, in 100 days, but no, it's very difficult because both sides have a maximalist ambition. Putin would like to have a victory, let's say, big, let's say, result from Ukraine war. Other side, Zelensky would like to have some, let's say, result for their population. But of course, the important role in this war are going back to United States. Of course, Trump would like, but it is a difference between the Trump and deep state. It is a difference between the president and the structure. And in other side, Europe, and mainly in last time, the United Kingdom. Because personally, I believe without, let's say, some positive interaction or positive role of United Kingdom, any ceasefire or putting end the Ukraine war is very, very difficult. But regarding the cooperation in the region, I think 3C is very important. First is confidence. That means country in this region, NGOs, think tank, should work more deep in this field, and because of that, we propose to our friend in Azerbaijan, in Baku, in discussion with friend in Yerevan, and actually in Georgia with our friend, to have some such think tank 3+1 in Tehran or in Armenia. This is very important. Other is some constructive cooperation. We should have some mega project with Armenia, with Azerbaijan, with Georgia, and at the same time with Central Asia country, because we have many similarity. We have, let's say, ground in civilization, in culture, in language, and let's say peaceful living millennia. And the third is convergence. That means if countries are going on convergence, you may refer to the Balkan or European country. Sometimes I enumerate, and the list was more than 20 conflicts in Europe between Romania, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, Slovakia, Serbia, Albania, Serbia, Macedonia, Macedonia, Bulgaria, and actually between Austria, Italy, and between France and other countries. But what is very important is the approach of that country who are thinking in their interaction and their relation with countries with convergence. I think this is very important in our region, in, let's say, to increase the stability and security and prosperity in this region. As you know, Iran always emphasizes the important, let's say, international bases like territorial integrity, have no interference in internal affairs, and many other things. This is, I think, very important for having a confidence in this region.
Thank you, Mr. Eghbali. I have my last question, and then give the floor to the audience for raising their question. My question to the panelists, the esteemed panelists, is, for example, if, assuming that there is a compromise between Russia and the United States, what is the implications of this compromise on the situation in Eurasia, especially in the Caucasus, in Ukraine, and Central Asia? Just in 2 minutes, each one of you, if it is possible, give the answer. Please, Mr. Shafiyev.
Well, very quickly, it's hard, but I'll try. In terms of international law, it depends which compromise. Whether it means that the redrawing borders and the changing what we have basically after the Second World War, though the redrawing borders started not with 2022, even not to 2014, earlier. And the Western country has its own shares of interfering and changing borders. So that's, I think, one thing, very uncertain and kind I think, might have some negative implications for the world order if the end of result is country A getting territory by force from country B, and it's affixed, on the paper. The second, though, I think the implication and the lessons learned for countries like Ukraine, that you always should rely and you always should strive that to make peace and to make compromise, let's say, to live in geography where you are, rather than to believe that somebody from out of the ocean will come and resolve your issues. Because what we see, government A saying, okay, I will fully support, and after 4 years, government B in the same country saying, you own your own. So that is kind of implication for, if very briefly, but it might have, if we'll have more time to speak about some other deeper implications.
Thank you so much. Mr. Amersi, what do you think?
Yes, a very quick word. I think if the Russia-United States rapprochement happens, I think that the United States is likely then to pivot far more towards South China and focus on Taiwan and South China Seas, because their main focus is going to shift to Southeast Asia. And I think that in that context, it's very likely that the US will say to Russia, you can maintain your sphere of influence, which will be the stance. So I think that the competition between Russia and the US for the stance will lessen, because US focus will be South China. I think that Europe will be quite isolated, because they will not have the support of the United States, and whether they want to become the cheerleader for Ukraine by themselves or not will be difficult. But I feel that if this rapprochement happens, then in a way the stance will lose out, because they will fall, unfortunately, more under the influence of Russia.
Thank you very much. Mr. Melkonian,
I will try to be very brief. I think we have an example how one territory was occupied then legitimized by other country. Israeli occupation of Golan Heights during the 6 Days War, when then Trump in his first term came and recognized as a part of Israel. So the Ukraine case is not the precedent, I think, in this maybe wide range. And I completely agree with my colleague. If it means that United States will recognize that Russia has its own interests within the post-Soviet space, and United States will not interfere in there. But at the same time, it will depend whether the European Union will have enough capacity to deter Russia in post-Soviet space by its own. If not, definitely all countries from former post-Soviet space will take into account Russia's interest again.
Okay, thank you. So what do you think about it?
Yes, I think any compromise between US and Russia is very difficult. Maybe as a declaration is possible, but as a reality, because in three levels, as a president, a state and nation, this is very different, and actually what we are seeing from President Trump is very far from the previous president. And this term, after 3 years or 2 years, or I don't know, will be finished and nobody. And actually, I think because of this, in Russia, there are no enough confidence in United States for any agreement. And this, I think this is far away. I believe any compromise between United States and Russia maybe reach on some result with the help of European Union and in a somewhat with China. You know, Russia economy was solved by the Chinese role. If Russia would like to make some compromise with United States, that means will be in the favor of China. Thank you.
Thank you. I wonder if there is any Russian representative in the discussion, because we were waiting for Mr. Yevseev. Unfortunately, we missed him. If there is any representative from Russian government or...
Nobody.
Nobody is here, because we referred many times to Russian position and policies. Is there any Russian here? Okay. No. So the floor is for audience. Please, our friend from Armenia, briefly, please.
Davtyan.
Davtyan, Mr. Davtyan. Mr. Davtyan, you may, okay, there, because you are translating.
Թարգմանեմ։
Ես կարծեմ։ Իհարկե ցանկանում եմ ես աշխատում եմ։ Շնորհակալություն։ البته میخواستم من فارسی صحبت بکنم اینجا، ولی دوستان چون که نیاز بود انگلیسی بشه، خواهش میکنیم که آقای سرگی ملکونیان ترجمه کنه. Քանի որ կարիք կար, ես ցանկանում եի պարսկերեն խոսել, պատրաստվել էի նյութ ներկայացնել պարսկերեն, բայց այստեղ տեխնիկական հնարավորություն չունենք։ Ես կխոսեմ հայերեն եւ կխնդրեմ թարգմանել անգլերեն.
As far as I wanted to ask a question in Farsi, and I've prepared it, and as far as we don't have enough technical capacity, I will translate it from English.
Thank you.
Մեզ անհանգստացնող խնդիրը վերաբերում է Միջին Միջանսկին եւ նրա էությանը, հատկապես նրա ընձեռած հնարավորություններին եւ մարտահրավերներին.
There is one question, and we have concerned on it. It's about Middle Corridor. The concerns are about its nature, its opportunities and the threats that's coming from this project.
Ակնհայտ է, որ այն հայտ է ներկայացել որպես մեծ մեգա պրոյեկտ եւ տարածաշրջանի մի շարք երկրների համար ունի աշխարհատնտեսական նշանակություն.
Obviously, this project was aimed to be at the global level that has that is significant for regional countries in terms of geo-economics.
Սակայն այն եթե ճիշտ եւ լիարժեք քաղաքական լուծումներ չստանա, կարող է վերածվել աշխարհաքաղաքական կոնֆլիկտի.
If this project is not realized or somehow solved, it may bring us to a kind of new conflict.
Մասնավորապես խնդիրը վերաբերում է այն հարցին, որ կարող են դրա պատճառով մի շարք երկրներ մնալ լուսանցքում.
And particularly we're talking about that some countries might be out of this project.
Եվ որոշ երկրներ հեգեմոն քաղաքական անվտանգային դերակատարություն իրենց վերապահեն տարածաշրջանում.
And some countries, other countries will dominate in terms of security, economy and politics in the region.
Իհարկե կան հետաքրքիր լուծումներ, որպես մեգա ծրագիր ցանկալի կլինի, որ այդ դրանից օգտվեն տարածաշրջանի գրեթե բոլոր երկրները։
Obviously, there should be some solutions based on which other countries may benefit in talking about other projects.
Իհարկե կան տեխնիկական խնդիրներ, կան քաղաքական ակտիվության պակաս որպես խնդիր եւ տնտեսական շահագրգռվածության գործոն հանդիսացող խնդիրներ։
Obviously, there are some technical issues, political activity related issues, and economic oriented some issues.
Դրանք բոլորն էլ ըստիս լուծելի խնդիրներ են։
I think we may solve all of them.
Առաջինը պետք է քաղաքական կամք,
First, we need a political will.
երկրորդը ներկայացնել ճիշտ տնտեսական շահագրգռվածություն ներկայացնող բոլոր հանգամանքները բոլոր երկրների համար։
Second, to present in the proper way the economic interests from each side.
Իսկ մնացած տեխնիկական խնդիրները կարող են լուծվել միանշանակ։
And other technical issues definitely might be solved.
Ինչու՞մն է բանը։ Առաջին հերթին խոսքը վերաբերում է Չինաստանից, Ալաշանկուից դեպի Իրան, դեպի Սերախս եւ իհարկե գուցե նաեւ միջև Ջուղա երկաթգծի շահագործման ակտիվությունը մեծացնելուն։
And we are talking about the project that will connect China with the Iran via railway until Isfahan.
Ես անձամբ առիթ եմ ունեցել եւ խնդիր եմ տեսել, որ կա այդ խնդիրը իրանցի լոգիստիկ եւ բեռնափոխադրումներով զբաղվող կազմակերպությունների, ընկերությունների դիրքորոշումներում։
Me personally, I saw that there are some problems technical in Iran in terms of decision making, how to deal with it.
Նրանց տեսակետի բեռնափոխադրումների ծավալը քիչ են։
From their perspective, the amount of trade turnover is very low.
Եվ տնտեսական շահավետության տեսանկյունից ձեռնտու չի իրենց
And it's not beneficial in terms of economic perspective.
Ուստի կարելի է տարածաշրջանային համագործակցության մի հարթակ ձևավորել, որից կարող են օգտվել գրեթե բոլոր երկրները։
So maybe we may develop a platform from which may benefit all regional countries.
Երկաթգիծը Չինաստանից հասցնելով Ջուղա, կարող են դրանից օգտվել Իրաքը, Թուրքիան Բազարչայով, Ադրբեջանը Նախիջևանից, Հայաստանը Մեղրիից, կարող են օգտվել Ադրբեջանը նաև մյուս հատվածից, իր հիմնական հատվածից եւ բնականաբար նաեւ Իրանը եւ դրանով կարող է լուծվել բեռնափոխադրումների ծավալային խնդիրը։
Bringing railway from China to Iran via Turkmenistan, via Azerbaijan, via Armenia, all these countries will benefit. Armenia will benefit via Megri, Azerbaijan will benefit via Nakhichevan, and all other countries will benefit if this railway comes from China to Isfahan.
Եվ որևէ երկրի շահերին դա չի սպառնում, չի տուժում դրանից նաև Վրաստանը։
And the amount of trade turnover definitely will be high, and all other countries, including Georgia, will benefit.
Սա ուղղակի համագործակցության առաջարկ։
This is a suggestion for a cooperation.
Okay, thank you very much. I see that in audience there are many prestigious figures, our ambassadors, Ambassador Kharazi, our ambassador in Central Asia, Ambassador Mullah Abdullahi, and Ambassador Kulini, our former ambassador. The floor is yours, Dr. Kalaji, one of the prominent researchers in the Central Asia and the Caucasus. Please, floor is yours. Briefly, please.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Moradi. Thanks very much for all of the speakers. Recently, okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Frank, for Dr. Moradi and all of speakers. Recently, we have heard news about maybe the Republic of Azerbaijan and Armenia joined to Abraham Accord in the Middle East. Following the collapse of Bashar Assad regimes and also the Donald Trump came into the power again. It's much surprising, Mr. Shafiyev and my Armenian friends, Sergei Melkonian. It's been my pleasure that you answer to this question. It's much surprising because the Republic of Azerbaijan is a non-Arab country. And also, Armenia is a Christian country. Both countries have a good relations with Israel. And as you know very well, the Abraham Accord, it is initial goal of Abraham Accord, conclude normalization relations between Arab countries which have not relations with Israel. But Azerbaijan and Armenia have diplomatic relations with Israel. How do you think about this suggestion in this current situation? And also, what is the reaction or position and views of the Republic of Azerbaijan and also Armenia about this suggestion? Thank you very much, Dr.
Just briefly, in 1 minute, if it is possible, answer this question.
I think it's something which newspapers like to talk about, and because, as you said, Abraham Accord, indeed, it's for Arab countries which does not have a diplomatic relationship with Israel, and the name Ibrahim, which means they have ancestors, common ancestors. So I think it's just things because Abraham Accord is kind of baby of Donald Trump, and the people around him and some journalists would like to put that in the spotlight because, both, I think Armenia opened even the embassy before Azerbaijan in Israel. So we have diplomatic relationship. I think it's something in newspapers that the media fuss.
Thank you.
I agree. It sounds like a wishful thinking. Definitely Armenia has its own problems with Israel in terms of Armenia's Christian quarter in Jerusalem is under attack, etc. But I think Mr. Donald Trump wants to be an Olympic champion in conflict preventing and solving from India, Pakistan to the South Caucasus. And this might be one of the tools. And I don't see that this is relevant in the short-term run.
I just want to have a quick word. To answer your question, it's very different from Abraham Accord and Abrahamic Alliance. The Abraham Accord requires recognition of Palestine and normalization of relationships. The alliance, which is what was proposed by Witkoff on his Baku visit, is not conditioned on normalization at all. It is an enlargement of the economic alliance between Israel and already Azerbaijan, Armenia, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. It's extending Israel's influence to the stans without talking about normalization. Two very different things.
Okay, thank you everybody as we run out of time. Thank you everybody, thank you esteemed panelists. I enjoyed your discussions. Just for your information, those who have invitation, please gather in the amphitheater hall, at 18 please. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.